Oh, good morning. I didn't even click record. Good thing I didn't get too far into this video, otherwise that would have been embarrassing. Well, just for me. Anyways, good morning, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Hizzy Hustle. My name is Tyler Heisman, licensed realtor here in the Okanagan. Back with you for a message on all of the party leaders' key platforms that they're going to be pushing forward. Firstly, as as this election campaign starts, well, I'm sure we'll hear a lot of recycled ideas, we'll say, throughout this process. I'm really curious to see how that's all going to play out. But yeah, I'm really curious to see how the conservatives come back and pitch some new platform ideas that are going to kind of differ them from the liberals, and Mark Carney essentially taking all of Pierre's previous platform and saying that he's going to implement it himself. So I think they're doing everything that they can to kind of walk people off of the fence here, and it's gonna be an interesting ride. I think we're gonna have a lot of fun ones. Polls have definitely gotten close. I think that there's definitely a little bit of a polling bias leading for the liberals right now, so I don't think it's quite as close as they say it is, but it's definitely like, they're probably 5 to 8 points probably off of each other. So it's close. This particular election, I think, is going to be one where mistakes will matter. So mistakes in a debate, bad attack ads, any of that type of stuff that could potentially sway people one way or the other will do that this time around, I think. So both sides got to have their A game. Both sides got to be ready to play hardball, and we're going to see who's going to come out on top. Obviously, I have my hopes, but I'm just going to keep that to myself and let everyone take their guess. But yeah, this is a really important one. So educating yourself and keeping track of everybody's movements are going to be important. Like, for example, we have Mark Carney meeting with all the premiers, particularly Alberta's premier, Danielle Smith, talking about how he's going to potentially remove the emissions cap for the oil and gas sector. However, he had I believe his environmental minister back in Ottawa at the exact same time telling all the reporters that they will not be removing the emissions cap. So that right there is one of those perfect examples of the liberals saying stuff that they want to do, but obviously stuff that will not be supported throughout the platform of their party. It's just not the way it's going to be working. There's no way that they're going to turn around and just start axing all of these environmental programs, social programs, and stuff like that to try to seem like they're a little bit more conservative and to try to get some of those right-leaning supporters back. But, a lot of those people are, to be honest, if you were a liberal and you were considering voting the NDP, it's a different story. But I think if you were a liberal and you've decided to become conservative, I don't think you're going to go back. I think a lot of those people who made that decision, they made it with more of a clear, not a clear directive, you know what I mean? Where it was just like, okay, this is no longer the brand that I want to be associated with, more so. So, anyways, that was a little bit of a longer one, a little bit of a spiel here this morning, but let's get into this. We got CTV here. Oh shoot, I didn't set this up. Oopsies. There you go. Let's see
Here we go. It's the first full week of campaigning in the federal election. For the next 36 days, we'll be bringing you the latest details on the leaders, on the issues, the things you want to talk about and ask about. But first, we want to bring in CTV's chief political correspondent, Vassy Kapelos from Ottawa. We're taking a closer look at the strategy this morning, Vassy, behind these individual campaigns. Great job yesterday, by the way, watching you then. Good to have you on this morning. Based on what we've heard from the party leaders in the run-up to this election call, what are you hearing about the specific messaging on the campaign from each of these parties?
Well, there's actually a point of convergence, Anne-Marie. It's great to be with you this morning. I think particularly when you look at the Conservatives and the Liberals, the message is one of change. And obviously, here's how we're going to...
I would just like to remind everybody that this message of change for the Liberals is only 3 months old. Because in November, when we were still in the House of Commons, every single Liberal MP was saying how well everything's doing, how the programs are helping people, how there's more money back in the pockets of Canadians, how good they're doing, how amazing all these new ideas are or whatever. And then all of a sudden, now it's just time to reverse.
I guess, bounce off that message and come up against the challenge that Donald Trump represents. I think it's interesting that there is that convergence around the message of change, because had Justin Trudeau stuck around, he would not be able to even deliver the idea that he could be changed from himself. But you could certainly hear that yesterday with Mark Carney in his campaign launch. In his initial remarks, he spoke about the 9 days he had been prime minister, all that he'd changed, which includes repealing 2 things that Justin Trudeau did: the carbon tax, the consumer carbon tax, that is, and the capital gains tax changes.
Well, the capital gains tax changes weren't technically supposed to be in effect in the first place because it's never went to the House of Commons. So that was actually illegal in the first place. So that's probably just a good idea, because CRA has been trying to implement this tax hike, but it's not actually legal yet because it wasn't voted on in the House of Commons. And for the consumer carbon tax and the I don't know if he got rid of both of the carbon taxes. Wasn't too sure about the industrial one, but he was just on the news conference talking in Europe or whatever, where he said that we need to have a price on carbon, otherwise that we're not going to be able to trade with anyone in the EU. So he's trying to promote change, obviously, because it's going to be what's important for the Liberals or whatever, but people need to be aware of the fact that it's not actual real change. Like, this is not real change. This is just a gimmick before he does all of the real implementations that he wants to do once he has a 4-year mandate, if he were to get it, right? So be mindful and try to pay attention to more than one source of news.
Visit to Europe. Look at all the change I've done in 9 days. Imagine how much more change could be ahead. And of course, the Conservatives' message is very much focused on...
Oh my gosh, look at that. Snow White opens with $43 million at domestic box office. That's got to be terrible, right? I'm pretty sure that's terrible.
On change the way it has been for the last 2 years since Pierre Poilievre assumed the leadership of the party. The difference, of course, his message has changed from the Liberal government the last 10 years, whereas Mark Carney is trying to accomplish the same message, but of course with the same party beneath him.
Yeah, and just really quickly, the NDP and the Green.
Same party, too. A lot of what I think is happening, especially when it comes to the Liberal supporters, is I think all of the NDP supporters have decided that it's not really worth it to try to bump Jagmeet up, because, I mean, you can say that you like the NDP, but at this point, especially under the leadership of Jagmeet Singh, they're just not doing well. And the NDP is not taken seriously. They're just considered to be the left-wing socialists that never get anything done, right? It's just wishful thinking. It's like the PCP party, right? They're just kind of a nothing burger of a platform where they just throw out these really nice-sounding ideas that are going to help the average person or whatever, but really they're just ideas, right? Like in actuality, they never work, right? Like, I'm sorry, but you can't get the few to pay for the many. It's just not going to be the way it works. So yeah, I think a lot of the Liberal support that's coming from right now is just people jumping off the NDP bus and hopping onto the Liberal bus as a attempt to do whatever they possibly can to keep the Conservatives out of power. I personally think that that's what's happening.
And the Bloc.
Yeah, the Bloc and the Greens, I think, are centered on the message that we would expect of them. The Bloc's message is solely meant for Quebecers, and essentially the idea or the thesis put forward is the Bloc is the only party that can adequately or substantively defend solely the interests of Quebecers. What will be interesting to see is whether they're able to contend with the
I don't even know what Elizabeth May was saying right there, but I just want her to stop. Like, can we just watch this lady?
Whether they're able to contend with the Liberal.
She seems like that old lady that used to get mad at us on in the neighborhood or whatever because we were using the part of her sidewalk that she would drive on to get to her driveway. Not her property, just the part of her sidewalk that etches up as like a little jump for our bikes. You know what I mean? We were just doing it in front of her house, so she hated it. That's who Elizabeth May reminds me of.
Liberals ascent in public opinion polling in Quebec right now. The Bloc had been ages and eons ahead of every other party for a long time, and they've really struggled as of late. The Green Party is, not just focused on the environment, though that is what they're primarily known as. They will trickle out policy as they have in previous campaigns. They have this co-leader system right now, Elizabeth May and Jonathan Pedneau. So that'll be interesting to see the way in which that plays out. The concentration, or my understanding is most of the strategy will focus in and around Ontario and BC, where they see the biggest potential for additional seats, if at all possible. And finally, the NDP, they were in Quebec, and they will be in Quebec this morning, and then they're headed to Toronto, I believe, after that. They are focused on essentially lumping in the Conservatives and the Liberals as Conservatives. That's very much their messaging over the past few days. We're the only ones who will fight for the average Canadian is the message that they're trying to land, but they also contend with the
Mr. $2.2 million pension coming in and fighting for average Canadians when he had the opportunity to do that last year and chose not to because it would have affected his ability to get his pension. I don't know how else to put that. Like, the guy is scum. I'm sorry.
The huge challenge. Primarily, the Liberals' increases in public opinion polling have come at the expense of the NDP, who are at a point where they...
And that was exactly what the point that I just made was. I think a lot of the people who decided to be conservatives, they're not going anywhere. I think the conservative platform is very much holding that 40% demographic. I think there's a polling bias for the Liberals that are polling higher. And to be honest, I think less conservatives are just polling. Like, I don't answer my phone for polls or anything like that. Like, I will not do it. I don't care. I don't care at all. I know what's going on. I think I pay enough attention to the zeitgeist, and I kind of see what's happening. And the loud people have always been the same loud people, right, on both sides of the spectrum. So looking online isn't going to be what gives you your consumer sentiment. I think talking to just your average people and talking to more people, because I try not to bring politics or anything into my job or anything like that, but I tend to have a lot of conversations with people just about what's happening in the world economically and stuff like that, right? And you get to have the opinion of a lot of more regular people that probably aren't these Facebook commenters and YouTube channel commenters and all this type of stuff that would watch videos like these, right? So, I'm trying to do it more as a thought-provoking exercise, to say the least, because I personally don't care if you agree with me or not. It's just the fact that people are willing to see a clip and just follow it blindly without actually taking the time to do a little bit of research themselves. And that's what I dislike. And you have a huge amount of people that are doing that, particularly now, because they want to try to push their own agenda forward. It's not the party's agenda, right? It's when people have these feelings and these emotions, it's because they feel like they need to prove their point of view because they agree with a certain side of things or whatever.
They might be fighting for official party status.
Listen, we got a couple answers this weekend, one of which is what day we'll be voting, which is April 28th. And the other, we found out where Mark Carney is going to be running, and that is in the Ottawa riding of Nepean. And just...
Which is also crazy. I encourage people to look into this one. in Ottawa, this riding, apparently, I believe the guy had already been elected. Like, he served. He is a running Liberal, not a new guy or anything like that. And he was ineligible to run for his seat again or something like that. Like, it was crazy. And they essentially gave him the boot so that Mark Carney could get in this area. Like, it's... I really struggle to accept the process that the Liberals are going through. Like, even in the Liberal leadership race, in Chrystia Freeland's own riding in Toronto, somewhere in Toronto or whatever, she lost to Mark Carney for the vote for the Liberal leader by like 88% or something like that. I think she got like 13% of the vote, or it was like 12.5% of the vote or something like that. And Carney got like hard 80% of the vote. How does that happen? He had like 90% of the votes across the freaking board. And I don't even understand how that happens. It's like, you had a girl like Chrystia Freeland or Karina Gould, for that example. You had them both as Liberal figures that have been there for the last little bit. They're not going anywhere. They're still just as much a part of that party as everybody else. But instead of voting for them, you voted for a random because he's the one. But you don't know him. You don't know nothing about him. How is he the one? How do you know he's the one? It's such a weird thing that they're just like, because it's different, it has to be proper. I really struggle to understand how any of this shit's adding up. Sorry.
To set this up, the riding previously represented by Liberal MP Chandra Arya, whose name was first pulled from the leadership race, and then his nomination was revoked over the weekend. Carney's going to be running there now. We know this is a riding that's right next to Pierre Poilievre's, which will also make for an interesting race. But what happened here?
I wish I could tell you. There's really been no transparency around it, Anne-Marie.
They're not doing their jobs. CTV, CBC, all these news networks, they're not doing their jobs on this one. They need to go and hold these Liberals accountable and be like, what the heck happened? Ask the questions and don't take no for an answer.
Mr. Carney received a question yesterday, I believe from Judy Trin. It was her second question there, one of the last questions he answered in the press conference about what had unfolded and why that selection was made. He pointed to, local factors as to why he wanted to run in that riding or run in Ottawa, but didn't really provide any clarity on what exactly happened with Chandra Arya, who has been an MP there for a number of years. The party...
He wanted a riding, and they're going to make it happen. How is that okay? How is that a party that operates on integrity? It's not the way. The Liberals have turned into a party of do everything that we can possibly do to hold power. And I really, really dislike it.
He also didn't provide much clarity in the nomination issue, but also, when they rejected his application, he, of course, had some controversy around particularly his lack of language skills. He couldn't speak French and didn't think that was a necessity for a prime minister, but really no clarity beyond that. I think it is interesting, just more generally, that Mark Carney chose Ottawa to run in. There was a lot of speculation that it would be something like Toronto Centre or one of the more safe ridings in Toronto. They were contending between Toronto and Ottawa, both of which they felt were fairly safe seats.
All right, Vassy Capello, CTV Chief News Political Correspondent, CTV News Chief Political Correspondent. Good to have you with.
So I really like that nothingness of an answer that she gave, where she didn't actually hold the Liberals to any bit of account for some of the way that they've been acting and some of the moves that they've been making. But hey, what can I expect from the legacy media? It's just what they like to do, right? Keep their jobs intact, just like that. Was it Ruby or somebody like that? I can't remember who the CBC lady is that asked Mark Carney about his conflicts of interest or whatever, and then like almost lost her job or whatever. So yeah, that's the only things that I dislike. I really want to see the news hold people accountable, and I want to see party leaders go at each other's throats at the end of the day. That is what I am here for. I am here for the content, and I am very much looking forward to it. So here is my first kind of coverage on the election, which is kind of funny because this video was titled "What Each Party Leader's Key Message Is in the Federal Election," but I think we pretty much just heard like mainly just liberals and like a little bit of conservative stuff or whatever. They didn't really dive into. They said Green Party is going green. The Bloc Québécois only cares about Quebec, and then there's the Liberals and the Conservatives. So anyways, that is my video for the day. Don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe. Hit that notification bell, and we will be doing some coverage all throughout this whole process. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you on the next one. Peace.